You get a break tonight.
I done ran out of words.
I hear that. I hear that. Well, you always do a good job, I'll tell you.
Thank you, sir. Is Mr. Sims with us tonight?
He's here somewhere.
So whenever it's her turn, I'll just pull her over.
All right. She can't make it. She's one of those that,
It's always gonna be a Zoom.
oh, it was always gonna be, okay, okay. So do you wanna make the announcement for everybody to turn off their mobile devices, or you want me to do?
Yeah.
All right.
Please do, because mine is always, I just turned.
So as we prepare for our meeting tonight, if you would, all mobile devices, if you would, please silence those. Turn them off or turn them down. Who did this? Did he- I'm going to stick to the agenda as it is written. Yes. I don't- Hey, Ronnie, how are you? Good, good. I like that sweater. Is that a new one? No, you got a new one. She got a new sweater. Mm. Yeah, that's not. Hey, that wasn't me. That's true.
No, don't look like peanuts.
to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, March 7th of 2023 in the city council chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us tonight District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayrani Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 5, Andrea Reese, and not here but going to be joining us later is District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem. At this time, we have Pastor Reverend Jason Pointer. If you would please come forward, he's going to lead us in prayer. And if you would please remain standing after the invocation for our flags, our pledges, and then, Pastor, you can say a few words after that, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, guests, cheer squad. I didn't know I was going to have a personal cheer squad for the chaplain. Please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, you are a good and gracious God who wants to give every good gift to his children. And as you say, approach the throne of grace with the humility of a child and watch your Spirit work within us and among us. We know you have a purpose in place for all of us to work in your kingdom. For those here dedicated to public service, we ask your special blessings. We ask that at the highest levels you open doors that need to open on behalf of the city government. Work in the hearts of leaders throughout Kaufman County and beyond. And thank you for our local and area elected officials and first responders. We pray peace and grace over all who serve the greater good in any capacity. For the City of Terrell leaders, we're extremely grateful for their tireless efforts on behalf of not only the rank and file citizens, but for the most vulnerable among us, the mentally ill. It was in 1885, only a few years after the founding of the City of Terrell in 1873, that you, Lord, in your wisdom, placed what has become the largest state psychiatric hospital right here. Continue to bring the necessary workforce, the funding from all levels, and wisdom for the leaders to continue to provide exemplary care to the people who have come their way. Thank you for the challenges of life and the many blessings you bring into our lives. Thank you for the blessing of a beautiful day and for the privilege of each other's company. We ask, Lord, that you dwell amongst the proceedings tonight and continue to give leaders wisdom and clarity about how to best serve their people. In the name of your precious Son we pray, and the people said,
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the privilege of some additional time. What I would like to do is just share with you briefly the testimony that I was very honored to give at the recent Senate Finance Committee in Austin. It was my first time. It was a wonderful experience. I was led there and walked through the entire process by the CEO of the local mental health authority in Tyler, where I live, and it was just all around a great experience. I'd just like to share that with you. It only takes a couple of minutes. Good morning, senators and staff. Madam Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jason Pointer, and I'm the president of NAMI Tyler, a member of the NAMI Texas Board of Directors, and on a NAMI national task force made up of local affiliate presidents. For the uninitiated, NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. If we return to pre-pandemic numbers, which is not likely, at least not for the next few years, a staggering 5.8 million Texans will suffer a mental illness this year. That's about 1 in 6. Compare that to the 210,000 Texans who will sadly get a new cancer diagnosis this year. Yet in fiscal year 2020, adjusting for population, Texas spent 23 times more for cancer than mental health. My mother, Linda, waited more than 11 years to raise her hand and ask for help. 11 years, by the way, is the average length of time nationwide from the onset of symptoms to the seeking of treatment. Imagine if someone with the early signs of cancer waited 11 years. Once she got the help she needed, my mother became a paramedic, then a nurse, then a psychiatric nurse, then helped open the first max security prison in Texas, completely dedicated to the psychiatric inmates. Of the 5.8 million Texans who will experience a mental health crisis this year, how many Linda Pointers do you think are out there? Hundreds? Thousands? The question remains, are they worth it or are they not? As a child who lived with a parent with mental illness, then saw them go from patient to provider, I'm grateful for the resources that helped her and hopeful for the future of how Texas decides to treat its own who suffer from mental illness. In conclusion, National Public Radio did a story last year outlining why Texas ranks last in the U.S. in access to mental health. I didn't think I'd ever hear those words. Texas is last. For the sake of the Linda Pointers of the world, I hope I never do again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Reverend, for those words. At this time, we have a presentation for Reverend Pointer.
Please tell me those are cookies.
Hold your cookies right.
My pleasure, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. You've all been very gracious, and you've all also been provided with a brochure and my business card. Please feel free to contact me anytime. I was the chaplain at the state hospital here for 3 years and loved every second of it. This brochure outlines the new job that I do as a director of victim services for a faith-based nonprofit in Tyler, the only faith-based organization in the state of Texas, maybe even the country, that does direct victim services. So we're very proud of that. And peruse at your leisure and contact me whenever it's convenient.
All right. Thank you.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to be before you all. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda is to go to mayor and council community recognition and events. At this time, if you notice to my left, we have someone new. It's not our attorney. Maybe someday she'll be an attorney, maybe a city attorney.
For her sake.
Maybe admit, but we every year in our Terrell Civic Auction, we place a opportunity for someone in our community to become mayor for the day. And this year that was purchased by Kerry Harwell. Kerry, if you would raise your hand. And he decided that he was going to allow a high school student, a senior, come and be mayor for the day and shadow me and meet with staff, and that is Gracie. So Gracie has been with him. She's actually, today, you should be addressed as Madam Mayor, right? But she is honorary mayor for the day. She's done a fantastic job. I think your parents are here. But she has a proclamation that she worked on, she put together, and she would like to read at this time. So, Gracie, if you wouldn't. Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Whereas, there we go. Whereas bleeding disorders affect the body's ability to clot blood properly, and whereas bleeding disorders, including hemophilia, are characterized by extended bleeding after injury, surgery, trauma, or menstruation, and can be fatal if not treated effectively, and whereas bleeding disorders are usually genetic but can be acquired, and whereas approximately 400 babies are born with hemophilia in the U.S. each year, and 400,000 people are living with this worldwide, and whereas many individuals with hemophilia became infected with HIV and hepatitis C in the 1980s due to the contamination of the blood supply and blood products. And whereas in 1986, President Ronald Reagan designated the month of March as Hemophilia Awareness Month. And whereas in 2016, the entirety of the bleeding disorder community came together to encompass all bleeding disorders, and the Federal Department of Health and Human Services designated March as National Bleeding Disorders Month. And whereas all inheritable bleeding disorders, including von Willebrand's disease and rare bleeding disorders, affect millions of individuals around the world. And whereas the bleeding disorders community wishes to bring to light and give great scientific achievements in the treatment of bleeding disorders and the greater pursuit of advanced therapies and hopeful cures to these disorders. And whereas the bleeding disorders community's relationships with policymakers have fostered numerous medical and policy advancements beneficial to all those affected by these disorders. And now, therefore, I, Gracie Hamilton, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the day, and on behalf of the Terrell City Council, do hereby proclaim March 7th, 2023 as Bleeding Disorders Awareness Day in the city of Terrell, and encourage all citizens to join me in elevating awareness and promoting education regarding bleeding disorders in hopes of enabling the prevention of illness, unnecessary procedures, and disability.
And just for the record, Honorary Madam Mayor Hamilton here was so in control. The first time I read a proclamation, it was doing like this, and most of you who do that for the first time, you know, it's a little nerve-wracking, and especially with the full audience, right? She did such a great job. Man, you did great. We're going to do a presentation for her as well, but we also have someone else that we would like to present a certificate for, and that is Miss Bonnie Miller. And I'm going to allow Andrea Reese to do the intro for Miss Miller and tell us a little bit about why she's here.
Well, Bonnie Miller is a wonderful friend and a very kind-hearted person. She has a heart for Terrell and for supporting police, and in particular, police canines and their handlers. And because of this, Bonnie has donated the funds to allow Terrell Police Department to purchase a canine. And Bonnie is here today because we want to recognize her generosity to the city of Terrell.
So, Bonnie, would you please come
Excited to
forward?
be there.
All right, let's give her a hand. So we're going to do a presentation for Miss Miller, and then we're going to give Gracie a moment for her to take some photos with council and with her family. So we'll recess for just a few minutes, okay? Next on the agenda is hear remarks from visitors. Don, we don't have any. So we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. Item 6.1, discuss and consider the minutes from the regular city council meeting on February the 28th of 2023. Council, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from regular city council meeting, February 28th, 2023.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. We have a second from Andrea Reese, District 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item on the agenda, with the majority vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is boards and commissions. 7.1, discuss upcoming meeting calendar. This is our City Secretary, Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, in your packet is a March 2023 calendar with all of the council meeting dates. Please note, on Monday, March 20th, we will be having a meeting at 12 p.m. and a meeting at 6 p.m. Both of those will be public hearings and they will be held at the PAC. The calendar for April 2023 is in there as well. On the 11th and the 18th, we will be having those meetings at the Terrell High School Auditorium. And also May is in here, and it has all of the meeting dates on there.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Don? Okay, thank you, Don. Next on the agenda is to discuss resolution number 2064, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, creating and adopting an impact fee, Capital Improvements Advisory Committee to consent of the City Planning and Zoning Commission, to be consistent of the City Planning and Zoning Commission and one additional member appointed by the City Council, and setting forth the functions and duties thereof, and advising the City Council on updates to the city's impact fee program for water, wastewater, and roadways, and providing for an effective date in compliance with the impact fee statutes found in Chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code. This is going to be done by our city engineer, Chris Snap.
Mayor and Madam Mayor, City Manager, and, you know, I might be working for you someday, so I gotta be careful. You never know. And council, I bring to you a discussion tonight, Resolution 2064, relative to the impact fees. You know, you previously talked about these before. We had a presentation on them. This resolution consists of basically creating a capital improvement advisory committee, which is be part of finally assessing the impact fees as when they're finally calculated and derived. You'll be a part of that. So in part of that, as a function, that the advisory committee will be made of the P&Z committee plus one member. And as part of that Chapter 395 under the local government, that additional person on the advisory committee has to be approved by the city council. So I bring to you tonight for consideration and discussion, not in consideration for discussion only tonight, to consider an individual that will fill that position as that +1 with the P&Z. It'd be Shane Phillips. Shane Phillips lives here locally. He lives within the ETJ, and he's formerly been a member of the airport board, and he is currently the owner of Lakeside Commercial Builders. So he's very active in the community, business individual. He's also has an airplane with a hangar out there, so he's actively involved in the airport still today. So I bring to you for that for discussion, and we'll bring it again at the next meeting for discussion. Offer that up for any just questions.
Sure. So obviously this individual's qualified to serve on the board. Have you vetted him? Have you contacted him? Is he interested?
Yes.
Okay, so, council, if you have someone that you would like to additionally be considered, I would say let Chris know ASAP. This is going to be on our next
Yes.
agenda next Tuesday, so he needs to know if there's somebody that you might be interested in, but I'm comfortable with taking staff's advice and moving forward with it. You have any
Let me just say,
Yeah.
it's a very difficult state law requirement because
Okay.
you have to live, it has to be an individual who lives in the extraterritorial jurisdiction who works in the construction or real estate business.
Right.
So you've got a real niche person to be able to find there. We don't typically, as staff, take a leadership role in finding somebody. But since we had a former airport board member who actually met that very difficult requirement, we thought we needed to go ahead and get at least one candidate vetted for you. Obviously, if council's got a suggestion, just let us know and we can meet with that person as well.
Yeah, so again, I should have prefaced that by saying they need to meet the qualifications to serve first, and then let y'all do your vetting for them. Okay,
And those qualifications are in that pamphlet that
Okay.
you have too.
all right, this is a discussion item only. Does anybody have any more questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is 8.1. It's to discuss strategic plan update. This is going to be handled by our city manager, Mike Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I gave you about a 100-page document to look at, and I'm not going to read any of it, which would probably please everybody here, mostly Steve Rogers. I'm only going to go over the front page of this. So we make a regular business item out of adopting a strategic plan on a regular basis. This time around, we want to ask ourselves, what is our strategic plan for FY24, FY25, and FY26? And that's government speak for saying October of 2023 all the way through September of 2026. What goals should the city of Terrell have for those 3 years? Those are major policy items, and so we want to bring that forward for council discussion. And then, of course, what city staff is doing is every time we adopt that 3-year plan, city staff is committed to try to work through the annual budget process to see what's affordable, what can we do, what parts of those council 3-year plans can we get into the next budget year. So we'll start with just this short overview today. You've all seen it before. I've provided the last document into the packet. You can start sort of going over that and preparing questions on it. And then on each of these dates here listed in the future, what you'll see is your department head or your leadership team coming to you and discussing things related to each of these topical areas. So March the 14th, you'll get about 45 minutes of presentation from the police department and animal control related to some of their priorities for FY24, FY25, FY26. We'll give you time at the end of that presentation, 15, 20 minutes or so, to ask questions, let us know what your priorities are, let us know what your thinking is. Obviously, these are all discussions, so as you go through the process, you see you really don't get to action until way back down there in June. So you'll have fire emergency management, utilities airport, I won't read it all to you. May 9th is library and information technology, May 23rd is finance, and then we also, as part of your financial plan, adopt a 10-year capital plan. So you can see all of those. We hope to get all of your input by the time we get to early June. We can create a draft document for your review on June 13th, hopefully a final document for your review on June 20th, and then approve it on June the 27th. That gets us ready for our August budget retreat in a nice methodical manner there. So again, not trying to get very in-depth right now, but just give you the dates and our general plan for how to move forward. You can see there's a couple of council meetings in there that we're making sure that we skip so we give staff adequate time to work on different elements of the plan. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sims on the City of Terrell strategic plan, fiscal year 24, 25, and 26?
My feedback for the plan is that what I would like to see as each department comes forth and the city manager comes forth on each of these dates to discuss the priorities is to have an updated document or be able to point to what has been accomplished that's listed in this document. That way I'm mindful of time as well and reviewing those in advance.
Happy to do so.
Anyone else? All right, next item on the agenda is discuss affordable housing update. This is going to be handled remotely, I believe.
So Mayor, while Don works on getting our remote guest logged in, it's going to be Claire Losey from Texas A&M. I thought if I said Texas A&M, somebody would make a, there you go. All right, goodness gracious. I can't believe the whole room left me hanging there. So we've been working off and on for about 1.5 years or so, gosh, almost 2 years, to try to set Claire Losey up to do a presentation for us. They do a great job down at Texas A&M in their real estate research department, getting studies like this done all over the state of Texas. Claire and I had a conference call a while back in fall, and whenever we did that conference call in fall, what we determined was that the model that Claire had done, I should say Dr. Losey, for Corpus Christi was basically a good kind of model for the city of Terrell. We exchanged some ideas about the geography associated with that study to make sure it was well-rounded. And before we really kicked it off in a major way, I wanted to go ahead and, as per council request, get a direct presentation from our friends down in College Station. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Texas A&M team.
Can you hear, are you able to hear us? Yes? Okay, so we're having some difficulty with sound from, we're working through this real quick. Give us just a moment.
You don't have.
Claire, can you say something now?
No. Yeah, and if you're in the audience and you need to go, that's fine. I mean,
She muted on her side. Oh, she has it muted from her side. Maybe we'll see it.
Claire, can you try to say something now?
She unmuted.
yeah.
Ask her if hers is unmuted from her side.
Claire, are you muted on your side? Oh.
Adams is turned off. Does it matter that he's on or off? No, okay. All right. Well, you know what? We may have to come back. I hate to do this to you, but if we can't hear, we may have to revisit this item. Is that all right, Claire? If we have to revisit next week and we can have some tech guys take a look at it and see what the issue is. Okay. All right. What we're going to do is move on to the next item, and then we've got a technician here that's going to take a look at this as we move forward, okay? So just bear with us a little bit. Let's move on to item 8.3 and discuss June Heresy water main replacement. This is our city engineer, Chris Snap. Go ahead, Chris.
She is now. She was walking.
Okay, council, mayor, madam mayor, city manager.
Claire, can you say something? Yeah, no. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Chris. I was hoping that might work.
Now go.
Now you may go, yes.
Hang on, Claire. I'm going next.
And hey, Claire, it's okay. He's also an A&M graduate.
Our Nagy. Everyone, let me clarify the title of this. This should be discussed Amendment 1 of Professional Services for RJN Engineering. This project here consists of the water main off of June Heresy Road. Many of you may know that's been a problem area for some time. But in November of 2020, the council approved for the engineering services for RJN Engineering of the amount of $10,094 to get the engineering of the water main to the 90% completion mark. And as a result of that, they have completed that part, and now we're in a position that the remaining 10% is going to need an amendment of $69,325. And this takes it from the 90% to completion to construction phase for the professional services and bid process and construction services of the RJN overseeing and assisting the city in the construction of this water main. Terrence Stewart from RJN is here representing them, and they're available. Terrence, come on up. But this project, they are providing the engineering services for this project. The cost of this project is in the $1.5, $1.6 million range, and it's already been funded by previous of the 2023 A or B. I can't get mixed up of the grant that we've already approved for. Not grant, but for the CO that we've approved for. So that it's already funded, and so that's kind of gives you in a nutshell from there. I'll let Terrence say a few words.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here tonight. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to have provided the design services to date for this project to get it to the 90% level. Our firm certainly understands the importance of water and water supply to the community. So we've taken this project very seriously from the beginning. I did want to let the council know a few things. This project is being managed out of our Dallas office. It's a regional office. So we're very close, not in Terrell, but very close, and we can get here in no time flat. We have prepared for every contingency on this project. We believe we've covered everything, and I just want the council to know tonight that we're ready to go. Upon approval of this, we're ready to move into the construction phase and to provide the support needed to bring in, to bring in this project in a stellar manner. And so I have with me here tonight our project engineer, Jim Jinks. I would like him to wave, Jim. Jim has a unique skill set. He has actually worked on the private sector side, but he has public sector experience, having had experience working on a number of projects similar to this for the city of Denton. And so we're really pleased to have him in that role. And I think, Jim, he's a stickler for, details, for details. So I think that he has covered everything, and we're prepared to go and manage this project to completion. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions that the council may have.
Does anybody have any questions for RJN? Again, I think they touched on it briefly, that the funding is available through some money appropriated earlier. So
absolutely, yeah. So this was included in some planned borrowing, so the funds available are ready to go. Sooner we can get it to construction, the better. And Terrence's firm is really going to be helping us with that. As we look at the map, I will remind folks that we've recently had some rather difficult leaks and some blown lines out at close to the corner of June and Heresy. And so this is an item that we knew we needed to replace. and the water line is letting us know it had better get replaced soon. 'Cause it's busy breaking out there, and we're busy digging holes, and so this is a very important and urgent item, and I really appreciate council's support getting it funded. And I know we've had Councilwoman Holmes Thomas out looking at this corner and seeing the water run through there, so we're happy to bring this forward, and it means a lot to the community.
Councilwoman Thomas, would you like to say anything?
No, I just want to thank the city staff for taking care of some major breaks we had in that area. And I just give my blessings on this project to get this going, because those families have been very understanding and tolerable. And I think this is a good way to take care of the issues out there with the infrastructure problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Now, what's, so this will be coming back next Tuesday, and what is the ask for the council?
It'd be an amendment of $69,325.
To move forward with the final phase?
Take it from 90% all the way to 100% construction, along with their services, for the bid process all the way through the construction services.
And then will you come back once you're at 100% to start the project? Is there going to be some?
Well, look at what's on your screen right there before you is what I figure would be of interest.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, next
That's the
time
time frame of what,
All right.
that's what I was fixing to go over to kind of help
Okay.
Tiffany. I know you're going to get asked, well, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? When's it going to start? When's it going to be over?
Right.
So there's much a timeline of what our ideal and the time phrase of this whole entire project.
That's in a perfect world with no rain
Works are ready.
delays, no,
People are ready to work.
okay, cool. All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Our next item on the agenda is 8 point. Are we ready? Let's go back to Claire and see if we're able to connect audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got it worked out. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay, wonderful. I will go ahead and share my screen. Oh, the host disabled participant screen sharing. So if someone could enable it on their end. Okay, I think we should get to it. All right, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So as I mentioned before, but I don't know that you all were able to hear me, I'm actually joined by one of my colleagues as well, Dr. Adam Perdue. Dr. Perdue and I work very closely on a variety of projects. He is an urban economist, and he'll just be mostly listening in and interjecting as he sees fit. But just wanted to go ahead and introduce you all to Dr. Perdue. So that being said, let's go ahead and delve into the particulars of this proposed housing affordability study within Terrell. So I'm going to start with a very bold claim, and that's that housing affordability is the most pressing issue that is currently facing cities and communities across the state. I know that there are a variety of topics that need our concern, everything from transportation, community development, water issues, etc. But from my standpoint, again, I'm making the bold claim that housing affordability is the primary topic of focus. And we know that affordability has permeated news stories, right? It's very well addressed within our media. Of course, headlines just within your own backyard of Dallas, you know, all of the heavy hitting newspapers talking about, or news sources talking about how difficult it is to buy a home, you know, to find a home that is affordable to particularly lower and moderate income families, etc. Okay, so we know that housing affordability is an issue right now, but before we delve any further, let's go ahead and unpack it. What do we mean when we talk about housing affordability? So when we use that term, it's generally referring to the relationship between either home prices and rents and either household or family income. So it's the relationship essentially between housing costs and household income. And generally, we designate housing affordability into two different types, those being owner and renter occupied. And when we talk about housing affordability, there's an important distinction we want to make. So oftentimes we use the terms affordable housing and housing affordability interchangeably. When we talk about affordable housing, we're really talking about households. We're really talking about housing that is affordable to primarily low-income households. So it's more so synonymous with subsidized housing in that sense. But when we talk about housing affordability, we're actually talking about households across the entire income distribution. So everyone from low-income earners to market rate households. But of course, from a planning and policy standpoint, we're always most concerned with housing affordability for low and moderate income folks. Why do we focus on income? Why do we use that as a measure by which to compare housing costs across regions? Well, of course, first and foremost, landlords and mortgage lenders use income as one of the primary ways by which to measure a potential tenant's or borrower's creditworthiness. So we know that for mortgage lenders, income, wealth, and the credit score are going to be the primary determinants of a mortgage applicant's creditworthiness. And then, of course, for landlords, income is the primary source that they use to vet potential renters. And of course, income thresholds are also baked into housing policy at a federal, state, and state level. So what are the different types of owner-occupied housing affordability? Generally speaking, we are focused on the first main type, which is purchase affordability, and that's just measuring essentially home purchasing potential. It reflects the ability of either current homeowners or potential buyers, i.e. current renters, to purchase a home. Whereas repayment affordability, which tends to become a topic of increasing concern during a recession, it measures the ability of existing homeowners to continue to make those timely monthly mortgage payments. So generally, when the economy is doing well, we aren't particularly concerned about repayment affordability. But when recession hits and unemployment spikes, then that second topic tends to become more of an issue. But again, by and large, when we talk about housing affordability for buyers, we're talking about purchase affordability. So what is purchase affordability? In essence, it comprises the elements that are used to determine the home price affordable to a particular buyer. So that means that it is a function of the mortgage financing terms, so the mortgage interest rate, loan to value ratio, and debt to income ratio, as well as the credit score, and then all of the additional costs of homeownership, whether that's property taxes and insurance. It's also going to include any sort of mortgage insurance premium and those additional points and fees, etc. And then we know that, generally speaking, first-time and low-income buyers present higher loan-to-value ratios and debt-to-income ratios. So the point therein being that purchase affordability differs among buyers based on whether they are a first-time or repeat buyer, and then based on their own income. When we talk about housing affordability in a broader sense, we want to focus on both the demand and the supply side factors. So on the demand side, what are some of the determinants of affordability? Well, firstly, we have demographics, of course. What is driving demographics within a particular region? Are we seeing high population growth? What's the household composition, i.e. the age structure? What's the presence of children, families with children, etc. Then you also have conditions in the labor market. So herein we're talking about income and wages, unemployment, taxation, everything that entails. And then thirdly, you have for home buyers or potential buyers, changes in the cost of borrowed mortgage credit. So of course, this is just changes in the mortgage interest rate. And then lastly, on the demand side, you have consumer tastes and preferences. So essentially, are consumers indicating that they want single family homes or tiny homes, you know, that sort of idea. Then on the supply side, you have a couple different factors. The first of which is just the availability of land that you can develop, whether that's for single family, multifamily, etc. You also have any sort of regulations or zoning constraints. So this is within the purview of planning. Regulations encompass everything from minimum lot sizes, you know, imposing a minimum lot size of 5,000 or 10,000 square feet, to environmental regulations. So there's a broad array, there's a broad spectrum of regulations. You also on the supply side have construction costs, labor and materials, which we know have been increasing pretty significantly, especially during the wake of the pandemic. And then lastly, you just have any sort of housing legislation that is affecting the ability of suppliers to site housing on the ground. And this includes the availability of mortgage credit for developers, builders, etc. And we should note too that affordability does not necessarily encompass the full array of housing issues, right? It's certainly related to and an effect of other housing issues, but it does not entirely encapsulate, of course, all of the issues, housing issues that a community can face. For example, homelessness, the availability of housing, quality, etc. Okay, so let's delve into the proposed study a little bit. So in essence, we are hoping to help the city of Terrell, to help you all better understand housing affordability within your city among different income levels. Again, thinking back to when we were talking about housing affordability, how it encompasses households across the entire income distribution. And really through the study, we hope to identify disparities in the supply and demand of housing, both owner and renter occupied, by income levels to help you develop goals and objectives for future housing programs and policies. While we at the center cannot directly guide you to those different policy outcomes, we hope that the data and resources we provide through our study can help inform you in those efforts. In essence, just a brief overview of the methodology. We would sequester households by income. So we generally follow the HUD income limits, i.e. extremely low, very low, low income households, you know, that 0 to 30% of area median income, 31 to 50%, et cetera. And then we can use different geographies. We generally use census tracts, but we can certainly change that to better fit your needs. And then we also develop our own affordability metrics. That's kind of our back end application here at the center. But generally speaking, we're assuming that potential buyers can afford a home about 3 times their income. For renters, we defer to that HUD standard, i.e. renters can afford to spend no more than 30% of their income on rent. And then we run the model based on these assumptions and create maps to help better depict the results. So this is kind of just an overview of what I was talking about a minute ago. For measuring purchase affordability, i.e. home purchasing potential, again, generally speaking, we're using a multiplier of about 3. It differs by geography and by the different assumptions we're making about mortgage financing terms. But, you know, the multiplier will hover somewhere around 3. And so with that in mind, for example, a household earning an income of $50,000 could afford a home price of about $150,000. So this table is just kind of taking you through the math of the different multipliers and their effects. And then again, for renters, we're applying the HUD standards, a HUD standard, again, which stipulates that a renter can afford to spend no more than 30% of income on housing costs, which include both rent and utilities. So a household earning, in this example, $24,000 annually could afford to spend a maximum of about $600 per month on rent. And again, this table is just showing you the math behind that all, so that, you know, $50,000 household could afford a rent of about $1,300 per month maximum. So in terms of the model itself, this just provides an overview. This is for a different geography, but this is not for the city of Terrell. But this is just to give you a snapshot of what the results would look like. So herein we have our different income cohorts, and you can see the corresponding income ranges. So for example, within this geography, the income range for your lowest income earners is a maximum income threshold of about $29,000. Then again, using the back end multipliers, the affordable home price range for that lowest income cohort is a maximum home price of about $96,000. On the demand side, they're about 26% of potential buyers within this geography that could afford a maximum home price of $96,000, but only 1% of homes within this particular geography were sold in that year that were affordable for this income cohort, i.e. the supply of homes is reflecting the percentage of homes sold for less than $96,000. And then the rightmost column is depicting the extent of either the over or under supply within a particular geography. So, or within a particular income cohort. So for example, within this geography, there would need to be about 55,000 more units priced within this price range, i.e. priced less than $96,000 in order to meet the demand from this extremely low income cohort. So this rightmost column, it's a zero-sum game. And so when you're seeing an oversupply, it's indicating that in order for extremely low, very low, or low-income households to attain homeownership, they would have to buy up. They would have to purchase a house for more than is reasonably affordable to them, if that makes sense. And I'm happy to discuss. I know this model can be a little bit confusing, so I'm happy to address any questions on it. But again, this is just to provide an overview of what the results would look like. So just to wrap up, in terms of the scope of work for the proposed study, generally speaking, we asked for about 3 months total. And during the first month, we are working on the methodology, i.e. the multipliers in the back end. We're collecting data, meeting with city officials. We would visit Terrell and just want a layout of the land, and also to conduct interviews with any key stakeholders that you all would identify: realtors, developers, appraisers, lenders, surveyors, anyone within the city, and even renters, folks like that. Then we asked for about a month in which we would conduct our own data analysis. And at the end of that month, we would send the results of the preliminary analysis to you all for review. And then we asked for about another month just to review the study and reconcile any issues that you all have identified. And then finally, give a presentation to the community with our results. And then lastly, if anyone wants to review a sample of prior work, please feel free to look on our website. The article is called "She Sells Resales by the Seashore." It's a very confusing title, but I saw it up on your end a minute ago, so I believe you have the link, but I'm happy to forward it again. So with that being said, thank you so much for having us. I'm happy to address any questions you may have, or feel free to email me if that works better for you. But with that being said, I will relinquish my time.
So Claire,
thank you.
I like the data that you produce. When you talk about city officials and engaging city officials in this process, who are you referring to? Are you talking about the city manager? You're talking about who is that? Are you talking about the mayor and the council? Who is it that you're,
Sure.
when you say city
Sure.
officials, what does that mean?
Yes, sir. So that differs depending on the city itself. It can look like anyone from the head planner or city manager. It could be the mayor. That's actually really up to you all, is who you want to identify as kind of being the liaison. But we just ask to have that direct communication with you all and to keep you informed about the study moving forward, if that makes sense.
In your process, or working with other cities, was there a model that worked better for you? In other words, was it a city manager that produced a better outcome, or was it the mayor and the council that produced a better outcome? Is there any suggestion there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I would say it's just really whomever works the most within the purview of housing. I'm thinking about a similar size city, and there it was their primary planner and the city manager, because they were the two people, two city officials who are the most focused on housing issues. So I would just say, whomever really fits within this wheelhouse the most.
And then lastly, in your gathering of data and setting up parameters and moving through with the study, have you ever found that a municipality involved themselves too much to where it swayed the data one way or the other? Because we don't want that. What we really want are true hard numbers. And so how would you suggest that we move forward with your company to ensure that?
Sure. No, that's a very thoughtful question. Thank you. To answer the first part of it, no, there has never been an instance in which a city has swayed our analysis or the results by any means, because we're using secondary data, MLS sales, tax roll data, census data, et cetera. And we've already developed the methodology. I think in terms of your involvement, it's really as much as you want it to be. With that being said, we do have some constraints on our end just with capacity. But we had asked, probably for bi-weekly meetings with whomever you designate as your, city officials, bi-weekly meetings just to touch base and make sure that we're performing, to the best of our abilities and that we're meeting your needs.
Right. So I'm just trying to make sure that the council has confidence in the numbers as presented, that once you're finished with your, or you've completed your analysis, that those are really what the numbers are when you show them to us.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for Claire?
Yes. We do not change the numbers.
No, I didn't expect, I just want to make sure everybody knows the process, right?
Yes,
or anybody within the city, sometimes we don't have the best of trust, but we want to make sure that we've done everything, and we make sure that you've done everything to present the numbers as they really are. I think I have a councilwoman that wants to speak. Mayorani? No, Mayor Pro Tem? Are we going? All right, let's start with District 2.
Yes, Mayor, Council. One thing that I would appreciate is, as a council person and the people that I represent, I'd definitely like to be involved in the process in terms of what they do. I want a perspective from the people that I represent. I think that's important. I think moving forward, it has to be a situation to where I have to speak, for the people that I represent, to be able to have some ideals about what we're trying to do in our community, what they like to see with our affordable housing. And I do want to say that I want to thank Councilwoman Holmes Thomas, and Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, for bringing this topic to the forefront while we're in Houston. And that's pretty much where all this began. I want to thank those two for their diligent work and in spearheading it forward and bringing it to the council. But that's one of the things that I wanted to mention.
All right, District 3.
Hi, Clara. This is Mayrani Velasquez. And yes, it was really nice to meet you at the TML conference and finally have you present to us. And I would love to have a copy of your presentation if we can share that with all of council. And I'm going to ask if you can go back a couple slides. I think it may be slide 2 or 3. It's the slide that that has an example of the factors on, I'm looking for other examples of factors that can be used to dissect geography. You mentioned census tracts. What other examples have you used with cities of our size?
Sure. So block groups are generally a little too small of a geography. Generally, the smallest is the census tract itself. I've also used its place in the census. So it's just the city boundaries themselves, the county itself. We could use zip codes. It generally depends on the population of the city itself and its geographic reach. Within Terrell, I would probably recommend census tracts or your own, council districts. Anything smaller than that is probably not going to be of a reasonable sample size on our end.
Thank you for that. I'm sure I'll have more questions in the future, but I'm also looking to get involved in the process. Thank you.
District
Thank you.
4. Good seeing you again, Claire. It was worth the wait.
You as well.
It was worth the wait. Thank you again, and I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you and getting some clarity. Thank you for sharing your contact information.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you all for having me here today.
Hi, this is Andrea Reese. One thing I have a question about is when you've done this in the past and they've gone ahead with the building of the affordable housing, one of my concerns is people who might look at these as a good opportunity for investment and want to buy them as rental properties, and then that shoves the prices on up and makes the ability to own those homes a lot more difficult for people, and even the rent drives the rent higher. So how do you look at that and consider that as, is there a way to limit that or discourage that? Or how do you factor that into your assessments?
That's a really great question. Thank you for that. So I would just say, first and foremost, kind of thinking about our model. If a developer or a home builder looks at these results and tries then to, kind of quote unquote target building housing within those that are affordable to income cohorts that are depicting a shortage of housing, that would actually be more beneficial to the community in the sense that you would be then able to, kind of meet the demand, meet that as previously unmet demand for housing. So that would actually be a more efficient, kind of optimal outcome. I know it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but hopefully, the results of the model are intended to inform folks on the ground as to the shortages and the need for demand. And that need for demand is generally for those lower income cohorts who, who the developers and builders have not necessarily been supplying housing to. So it actually, again, I know it seems counterintuitive, but it doesn't drive investor activity as much as it should, drive more optimal construction of new housing, again, to meet that as previously unmet demand. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking too about, so the developer builds those following the parameters that we want, but then, the houses go up for sale and people who like owning rental properties come in and buy those up, and instead of you know, these people being able to pay their $500 a month now, they're having to pay a higher rent to the landlords. So I don't know if there's any way to kind of help prevent that kind of thing from happening as much. I just want to be sure that with our focus being on having affordable housing, which I think we really need here, that it doesn't get injured on the backside by people looking at it as an investment.
Sure. I certainly understand. It's possible to impose, some sort of deed restriction. That would be, perhaps a more drastic measure. But I will say that within these studies, I have not seen that happen. That does not mean it could not happen, but we have not observed that phenomenon. Moreover, investor activity has kind of dried up in the wake of higher interest rates. We have not seen as many, of those large institutional investors, BlackRocks, et cetera. We have not seen as much activity in recent months, or really over the past year, from them in terms of, buying up large swaths of homes, buying up neighborhoods and such. So generally speaking, I think as of now, that concern would be somewhat diminished just by the overall market, the state of the overall economy itself in the housing market. But again, if you wanted to specifically mitigate that concern, it would be possible to do so through deed restrictions.
Okay.
I did have one more question. The slide you're on, Claire, when we look at this
Yes, ma'am.
four-person household,
Mhm.
what was the model used? How many adults working? Is it just 2 adults versus one?
Two adults. Great question. Yes, 2 adults and then 2 children.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Claire. We look forward to moving forward with this process. Is there some action that the council needs to take, or we're good to go? All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. Apologies for tech issues.
No problem.
But look forward. Are you going to be in Terrell yourself? Will you be in town when we start this process?
Sure. Well, why don't I connect with you all via email, and we can
Okay.
start laying out the framework.
Wonderful. Well,
For
good.
visiting.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. We really
Yes.
appreciate it, and everyone take care.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 8.4. Greg, would you read that in, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion resolution number 2065, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, authorizing the participation of the City of Terrell, Texas in the opioid settlements with Allergan, CVS, Walmart, and Walgreens through the Office of the Attorney General of Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute any and all documents necessary to participate in the settlements, and establishing an effective date. This would be resolution number 2065, and it's for discussion this evening. Basically, Mayor, members of the council, this is the result of a settlement that was entered into through the Attorney General of Texas with these various entities that you mentioned. It gives each region and each city within the region the opportunity to participate in those settlements by receiving a portion of the funds that the state gained from the settlements. To just give you an idea, we have received what estimates would be for the city of Terrell should the council elect to enter into this. As far as funds that would be received from Allergan, $19,961.94, from CVS, $44,867.04, from Walgreens, $50,203.96, and from Walmart, $25,098.95. This would be applied for use by the police department as the council and the PD see fit. This is something we did once before. I think some of you might remember that. And I believe at that point, from the last time we had an infusion of funds like this, it was used to bring in another police officer. I would have to defer to Chief McKeon about that, but I think that's my recollection. And the chief is here, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions that the council might have.
I think this is a pretty simple. Chief, did you want to say something, or you good?
This is kind of
Yeah, I don't know why we wouldn't want to support that and bring the money to our agencies. Does anybody have any question?
I don't have a question, I just got a comment. When this was brought to us earlier, I asked our city attorney, Ms. Ramsey, to give us other listings of opportunities of how we could use this money. I sure would like for you guys, my fellow council people, to look at some of those other ways we can use that fund. We did use all the other funds to get another narcotics officer. Addiction is addiction, and there are some other opportunities to try to address that issue. So that's just my kind of comment on it.
I think the only stipulation to the funding is that it's used with the police department, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how they determine to use it, of course, with our consent, I agree with you. If there's something out there that you want to look at specifically, Councilwoman, please give it to the chief and let him research and see, or our city attorney, and see if it's available for that purpose. And I think we're open for discussion on that, absolutely.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that it had that specific, but the list she sent me was different. So this may be something somewhat different based on the second.
Okay, yeah.
I'd be happy to
No.
share all the
Yeah,
That'd be great.
I would just throw in that, remember, these are somewhat slow-moving processes. We are only just now receiving the first round of money, so I would say that I have my doubts about how quickly the second round will come. So this is just a step in a many-step process.
These funds numbers that I gave you are estimates. They can fluctuate up and down.
Okay.
Mike, you read my mind. My question was going to be when we would anticipate to receive such funds, and it seems like it's been 1 to 2 years, between 1 to 2 years since the last.
I would say roughly, that's correct. We hope to get the first round of opioid funding sometime between April and May, and that was the estimated $180,000, and we're still waiting for a final number on that estimate. I would anticipate that the resolution you're passing tonight is really just going to end up being FY24 funds.
So we have discussion only, so it'll come back next week for passage, right? Am I correct?
That's
Okay,
correct, Mr.
all right. Next on the agenda is item 9.1, discuss and consider McClendon Chisholm extraterritorial jurisdiction boundary agreement. This is City Manager Mike Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I'm playing the John Godwin role tonight because we felt like this was a little on the straightforward side. You've seen John present this a couple of times. I'm just going to go to the very next page, if you don't mind, Dawn. So you start off with an agreement between the City of Terrell and McClendon Chisholm. We're going to do certain things. They're going to do certain things. Under Section 1, that's our responsibilities. We're going to do some work to help them. We're going to be working on making sure that we get a water line constructed going north of the city, going up towards McClendon Chisholm. There's some studies related to that. There are PUC, Public Utility Commissions related items related to that. Item 2 is the work that we have to do with North Texas Municipal Water District to help McClendon Chisholm in this way. The next page goes through some of the rest of it, which is to work on the financing of it. That might be through the Texas Water Development Board Fund, and then there's other methods that we could get funding from landowners or from developers, as well as from the City of McClendon Chisholm itself. And then, of course, acquiring the easements and right-of-way. And then we would actually be the entity managing the final design, because we would want our city engineer to give approval to anything that we build that would be a public improvement to serve both cities. And then number 6 is the one where, as you've heard Mr. Godwin describe, this is the land side of it. We want to make sure that we have a good boundary agreement between the City of McClendon Chisholm and the City of Terrell in the long term. And so we've got an area where we would say, hey, there's a zone where we will never go forward to expand our city limit or our ETJ within what we're going to show you here on a map in a minute as being the McClendon Chisholm ETJ zone. On the responsibilities of McClendon Chisholm, it's really just the flip side of it, right? So they're going to be working on getting in the drinking water business, as we've described to you before. McClendon Chisholm doesn't have its own water service. They're in 3 different water districts right now, partially High Point, partially Blacklands, and partially RCH. RCH has requested the McClendon Chisholm take over the RCH water supply system in whole. That's a big issue, and that's something our sister city there is working on. So they've got work associated with that while we're working on our side of it. And then you get down here to the bottom of it, and it's the parallel statement with ours. McClendon Chisholm's not going to take any actions or interfere with any issues that we have in what we define as our city limit or ETJ zone. So, Dawn, if you flip over to the map, which is just 1 or 2 pages back here, here's the map that gets attached to the agreement. And for reference, you can see State Highway 205 kind of cutting diagonally across here. A certain person in the audience who used to work for Dallas Water Utilities probably recognizes the Dallas Water Utility line that goes across State Highway 205 just south of Air Park East. The black line in the sort of top third over there is the Rockwall County line. And then FM 548 is kind of the other diagonal on the map. And Colquitt Road, which is also 598, you can also see that on the map as well. That little yellow thing down there at the bottom is the edge of the City of Terrell city limits at this time. Probably back in 2016, we did maybe 2014, we did a voluntary annexation with some landowners up in that area. And so that's why our city limit line kind of continues up toward, through the Big Brushy Creek corridor up in that zone. So if it's tan on this map, basically McClendon Chisholm is saying, hey, we're going to go backwards and back up our ETJ to allow the City of Terrell to have ETJ rights in the tan area. And in the red areas, the City of Terrell is saying, we won't ever go there. We will stay away from those red areas, and those red areas will be simply areas for McClendon Chisholm's ETJ zone. So you got 443 acres that are all McClendon Chisholm ETJ today. We say, hey, you guys keep that. And then we've got 636 acres that go from being in the McClendon Chisholm ETJ to being in the City of Terrell's ETJ. And as you know, what we do in the ETJ is to simply regulate subdivision plats. So reviewing the subdivision of land, things that people might do to change the drainage in Big Brushy Creek, that's very beneficial for our city in the long term to be the entity of record for any development that might happen up there. And again, this is not an annexation conversation. This is an ETJ conversation about what land area will eventually be managed by the subdivision rules of each different entity here. So that's the boundary agreement area. Again, tan is the zone that would come to the City of Terrell. Pink or red, there is the area that would remain with McClendon Chisholm. And so you've seen this agreement a few times. We anticipate McClendon Chisholm will take action on it next week. And we thought we'd go ahead and get our side of it done this week. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
Yeah, so we've reviewed and talked about this, Council. I think last week we had a presentation. Does anybody have any new questions for Mr. Sims? Hearing none, is there a motion on 9.1?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 9.1.
It's an interlocal agreement establishing permanent line dividing jurisdictional authority. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to move forward with the interlocal agreement with McClendon Chisholm. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with the unanimous vote of those present. Owen, how's your big sister doing up here? Huh? She's doing pretty good, isn't she? Next item on the agenda is 9.2, discuss and consider drainage study and design services for the Terrell Downtown Square and Central Park area. This is going to be our city engineer, Chris Snap.
Mayor, Madam Mayor, City Manager, and Council, come to you for discuss and consider the engineering services for the drainage in the town, Terrell Downtown Square and the Central Park development area. Dawn, if you'll go to page 146, please. And I'll briefly go over this, and we can go into the further discussion. Mike Burns from KSA is here today. We talked last week. This project is for the design services, as you can see on the map, is to come up with the design of the drainage from Brazos Street over in that area all the way to the other side of the railroad track on 34. So.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Were we going to listen to Mike? Mike, did you have something you wanted
Mayor,
to?
I was just,
No, this, Mike.
we have so many mics.
I know.
Let's defer to Mike Burns first.
Yeah.
Mike, you want to say anything?
No, sir, I'm only here to answer any questions
Okay.
Yeah,
council may
I
have.
would say the map Don's got you on is really the key thing here, and the idea is that if we've highlighted it in green on the map, then what we're going to work on studying and building can help us eventually build proper curb and gutter on those streets in those areas. And if it's blue on this map, it floods today, and making the improvements help us fix that to fix the flooding in those zones. So this is this is all aiming to very major work along Rochester, under 34, under the railroad tracks, down over by Gardner, because that's a zone that's problematic and has, again, an enormous amount of open ditch drainage. This helps us get to solving that, because if you don't fix the problems that I just mentioned, 34, the railroad tracks, Gardner, you really can't fix the upstream problems. So we're really happy to move forward on it, and Chris, you're going to remind me, it's just under $500,000. We've got a
$492,500.
yeah. So the previous page, Don, 145, has the requested not to exceed of $492,500.
Yes.
And this is to enter an agreement, city manager enter an agreement with KSA for that
Correct.
not to exceed amount. Okay, good. All right. Anybody have any new questions? Again, we reviewed this. It is budgeted. It is in the Stormwater Utility Fund for FY 2022 and 23. Is there a motion on item?
Mayor, I do have
Yes.
questions. So from my understanding, the first series of payments for the drainage study will be right under $500,000 coming from the stormwater fund. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the second series of payments, or that second $500,000 is proposed to come out of the stormwater fee in the future.
Right. So if you look at this, what you're getting is you're getting the starter kit for all of the final documents. In order to get to bid, then Mr. Burns and Chris will come back and they'll say, okay, we've made it this far. In order to get the rest of the engineering done and being able to go to bid, I'm going to throw out that we've got another $500,000 to do, but you guys could prove me wrong on that. And I believe that sometime over the summer, we'll be able to have a more in-depth conversation about, okay, exactly what will that dollar amount be? Because they'll have selected in the first part of what they're doing here, they'll have selected exactly what's the design approach. Are we going to do smaller pipes and bigger detention basins, or are we going to do downstream detention basins with bigger pipes up on another part of it? All of that will have been worked out by this summer, and you'll get a presentation as you're making your budget for FY24. Okay, what's the right dollar amount for engineering in FY24? And then you would anticipate to be building this project after FY24 and be able to actually do the improvement at that time.
Like I said, this will take care of the design, the engineering, the design, pending another potentially $500,000 in FY24. And then we would move on to construction. Since we have Mike here and happy to also take feedback from Chris and his experiences in other communities. How do other cities typically fund the construction part of these stormwater and sewer?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question from the standpoint, I really don't know what we're fully building at that time. This part of the phase here is to help identify and try to minimize some of that cost, whether we not have to, if we can minimize going underneath the railroad track, that's a large dollar item there. So, because you have to deal with the railroad, and that's not a very easy process. We might can get by with some detention ponds to help absorb some of the surge of the drainage and not have to build a series of box culverts. So all those evaluate what that total cost is going to be. So until we really kind of know that, then we'll know how much money we would be looking at and what the scope, and whether we want to phase it in. I mean, it might be something that we have to start at the back and move forward to allow that drainage. So this is going to be the first phase of that.
I appreciate your let's say, quick response to that high-level response to that loaded question. And so, you know, this item is focused on the drainage study for the design services of the Terrell Downtown Square and Central Park. What I am going to challenge our city manager and the council and staff is to increase the budget for stormwater and utility, and I believe it's called UCR, to tackle on more projects as we're thinking of south of the library. We certainly have older infrastructure, and I'm sure my colleagues here will argue with me on who has most of the older infrastructure and in their district. But we have aging infrastructure and we have needs across, and it certainly gives me some heartburn to spend money while we have other areas. Not to allude to, well, I'm not alluding that we're not spending money to take care of other areas and aging infrastructure in the city of Terrell. So I don't want to give that impression at all. But I certainly will say that it pains me, and that means I'll be asking for more dollars for District 3 for stormwater cleaning and aging infrastructure as well.
Well, to follow up, the goal is to help identify, but when it comes to the strategic plan presentation, is to help address some of those issues and let you know that I need $100 million. Now, y'all find it and give it to me, and we'll go out there and fix it. But that's my goal, is to at least you make the decision whether you want to fix it and where your priorities would be. And that's the way I kind of seek in that direction. So here's the budget for next year I'm requesting, and then we have to divvy it up. I can't have all the money in the world, sadly, but, you know, to at least identify so we know what the plan is and where the problem areas, and we can prioritize the dollars associated with that.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder for the public who's here that, you know, you might not spend a lot of time looking at your water bill. When you look at your water bill, you'll see a dollar amount on there for stormwater. The entire discussion we're having today is the way that the city takes a look at the stormwater fee that gets paid by all the households here who have their stormwater fee. If you're Film Alley, if you're Buc-ee's, if you're Madix, if you're Oldcastle, you get a much different looking fee. For us, it's $7.75, but for some of those big businesses, they're multiplying that by a factor related to how much concrete and how much rooftop they have. That's a very meaningful number. Right now, we get around $1.7 million a year in stormwater from not just the households here, but also from all the businesses here. And it's the exercise every summer of trying to see, okay, how do we program those funds? What are our priorities? And again, just for, you know, citizens in the audience sake, the $500,000 we're discussing here was discussed during the creation of the FY23 budget. We said, okay, we think we could do this chunk with this problem on Rochester, and every year we'll take another look at that and we'll say, okay, in the FY24 budget, what can we tackle? What can we address? What can we get better at? I can assure you that staff really appreciates the challenge to get out there and do more, because I can just promise you that's what Chris that's what he thrives on. So we'll just keep challenging our system and get as much done as we can.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anyone else have a comment or question?
Yes, Mayor, one thing I do believe is that these studies not only help us as a city, you know, to save time and money, but it also help us to identify opportunities, other opportunities, maybe high-profile opportunities that we could have in District 2 or District 3 or any of our districts. But I just think these studies that we invest into, we take the time to get a company like KSA to do, is incredibly important. And I know the numbers might seem big, but let me tell you, we're saving a lot of money and time up front, and we're also looking at potential opportunities that can come out of these studies.
All right. Everybody good? So, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for your presentation. Item 9.2 is discuss and consider the drainage study and design services. This is going to be, if you so wish, enter into agreement with the city manager and KSA in an amount not to exceed $492,500. Is there a motion?
Motion to authorize the city manager to enter into agreement with KSA not to exceed $492,500.
Second?
I second.
There is a motion from Andrea Reese, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to enter into agreement with KSA and our city manager an amount of not to exceed $492,500. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Mayor, you need to vote.
Aye. So, gavel. Motion carries with a 4-1 vote. It passes. Next item on the agenda is.
Mayor, may I just say
Yes.
thank you, council, and I just really want to say thank you, Madam Mayor. That's really what I wanted to come up here and say. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 10.1. This is a consent item, so all items are considered to be routine and may be enacted by one motion and one vote. Does anybody want to make a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is discuss Terrell Fire Department monthly reports for January and February of 2023. Council, I'm going to ask that you review those and get with staff so that we can move on. At this time, we need to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. We are now in executive session.
taking our letters away.
We're going to reconvene into regular session and consider action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions? Hearing none, all those, we are adjourned.